Previously on the Rubin Report.
I have cancer.
That's my cousin Tony's Anthony's cousin.
Is the best Biden ever.
What could bring Americans together?
I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
That's it?
That's it. It's good. It's good.
How the hell do you do it?
I don't know.
Of my summer in New Delhi in 2000.
How we doing, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's May 20th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. We have a post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com. And once again, I know you've liked, subscribed, and clicked all the bells and the buttons and things like that, so I won't ask you to do that, but I will inform you that the Don't Burn This World Tour, that's right, remember, don't burn this book, don't burn this country, the Don't Burn This World Tour is kicking off. We're going to be doing a worldwide tour throughout 2025, and it'll be rolling into 26 as well. And it's kicking off next week. We've got a couple shows in Budapest, Hungary. Then the week after, I will be in Tel Aviv, Israel. A couple days after that, I will be in Jerusalem, Israel. Later in the year, I'll be in Melbourne, Australia, Sydney, Gold Coast, and Brisbane. Tickets for those will be up soon, but the first four, the tickets are available right now. And you'll get to meet me and say hello. You can click that. No, you don't click a QR code. You scan a QR code. We're very technologically savvy here over at the Rubin Report. Or you can go to daverubin.com/events. And as long as we're doing some housekeeping up top, we also did launch our newly revamped Rubin Report newsletter. You can find out things about me and what goes on here that will blow your mind, people. daverubin.com/newsletter. And the theme of the show today is mostly good. There's mostly good stuff going on. Yesterday's show was, I would say, a mix of the kind of craziness around all of the lies and the liars who tell the lies, even though we know they're lying and they know that we know that they're lying. And today is about mostly the good stuff. And of course, with the backdrop of some people who will still continue to lie. But peace might be on the horizon. Yesterday, we focused a little more on the Middle East stuff. But let's jump over to what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, because Trump had a call with Putin, and they are trying to work this thing out. It seems likely that nobody will get exactly what they want. Ukraine likely will give up some territory. Russia will likely not get all the territory they want. But the fighting and the killing, it just has to stop, and Trump's just not having it anymore. Listen to this truth from Truth Social, from Donald Trump, and it is truth. Just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be because they know the details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent. If it wasn't, I would say so now rather than later. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over, and I agree. There is a tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. Likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary on trade in the process of rebuilding its country. Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. I have so informed President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, President Emmanuel Macron of France, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany, and President Alexander Stubb of Finland during a call with me immediately after the call with President Putin. The Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin. So this is very much, I would say, an offshoot of what I talked about yesterday as it pertains to the Middle East and Trump going over to Saudi Arabia and talking to the Qataris and the guys over in the UAE and everything else. We don't know if any of this will work. But it is a massive jump from the policy that America has had for the last 20 some odd years, right? Instead of kind of playing with bad guys and occasionally doing some bombings and regime changes that turn into half regime changes that end up with worse guys than we had before that and everything else, Trump is trying something different. He is trying to say, if you would like to be a partner with the United States of America, if you want access to our markets, if you want to trade with us, if you want to build things with us, if you want to partake in our economic success, which we're building out right here at home right now, instead of things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which just increase inflation. If you want to just jump in the game with us, you can. So we're seeing that in the Middle East. Again, I don't know where it will end. I don't know that it will work, but it is worth a shot to do something different, right? We've tried things that have not worked. And now maybe the best way to attain peace, the best way to attain, 1,000-year-old blood feuds is to get people on board the idea of freedom and liberty, which is connected to capitalism. That seems to be Trump's idea. And then as it pertains to Russia, it's the same thing. What did he say right there? If they can wrap this up, then Russia could have some interesting deals economically with the United States. And then Ukraine, which has been destroyed significantly, well, there's going to be a rebuilding process, and maybe there'll be all sorts of deals that could happen on top of the rare earth mineral stuff that we did a couple weeks ago and everything else. Here's Trump on his conversation with Putin. And again, just listen to the overall tone and to the backdrop of what we found out about Joe Biden a couple days ago and the way that these last 4 years were operated. Just like notice the just overall difference in attitude and the feeling that there's a little bit of transparency here.
Well, I want to thank everybody. We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. But I want to thank Melania for your leadership in this very important issue. It's an amazing issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. I would tell you she is very dedicated. In fact, if you look at just what I heard, Putin just said they respect your wife a lot. I said, what about me? No, they like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
Even that, guys, like there were plenty of clips we could have shown you there, but even that, like the joking, and then of course he makes it about himself again, but he likes the fact that they like Melania. And it's also like, doesn't it feel like it's true? Doesn't it actually feel true when he says that Putin was like, oh, we like Melania. And then Trump would have been like, well, what about me? And you might think that's nothing. Okay, that's like ego and joking and silly or whatever, but it's not nothing. Diplomacy is built on building relationships. And the relationships that we had for these last 4 years, we did not even know who the president was. We have no idea what the people who were going over there were doing. There was a hell of a lot of corruption as it pertained to, say, Hunter Biden working for a Ukrainian energy company and all of those things. So the reason I want to show you that is it shows like we're thinking about these things differently. Like Putin and Trump are starting to joke around a little bit. Putin and Zelensky, they had it out and now Zelensky's coming to the table. It's just fundamentally different and better. Listen to this from Undercurrent, which is an ex-commentator. I thought this was quite good. Trump just did in one phone call what NATO couldn't do in 2 years. No billions wasted, no virtue signaling, flag filters, just leadership that actually moves the needle. To further that point, how many times over the last 2 years have I said, what would be the amount of money that you'd have to give Ukraine to end the war? What would be the amount of tanks? What would be the amount of planes? What would be the amount of weapons, et cetera, et cetera? Nobody could give that, right? Everybody. How many times over the last 2.5 years have I had Rand Paul on? Probably 5 or 6 times, where he has said, oh, well, we just keep giving them things. We get no receipts. So it was becoming a giant slush fund one way or another, either for like the actual oligarch class over there in Ukraine or for our military industrial complex here. But the point is, now we are thinking about it a little bit differently, right? There was no amount of money. That was the thing. Why could no one answer that question? The most staunch Ukraine hawk could never say, well, if we just had 4 more billion, we could wrap this thing up. If we just had 50 more tanks, and if we just had, this many more planes, we could wrap it up. But everyone knew there was no ending. So Trump is finally going, we're not going to win this thing through bombs and war. We're going to win it through, well, the thing that he's pretty good at, which is negotiations. And here's Putin on that.
The President of the United States expressed his position regarding the cessation of hostilities, a ceasefire, and also noted for his part that Russia too supports a peaceful resolution of the Ukrainian crisis. We simply need to determine the most effective ways to move toward peace. We agreed with the President of the United States that Russia will propose and is ready to work with the Ukrainian side on a memorandum regarding a possible future peace agreement, outlining a number of positions such as, for example, the principles of settlement, the time frame for a possible peace agreement, and so on. This also includes possible ceasefire for a certain period of time.
All right, so as always, Putin is not a great guy. He's an autocratic leader that leads a country that has largely fake-ish, let's say, elections. He did invade a sovereign nation. All of those things are true. I don't know that we can trust him. He's a former KGB agent, not the cleanest guy, let's say. But here he is finally, as opposed to the last couple of years where, again, we were just funding a war. Now, for some reason, he's going, oh, there's a different guy in charge, and maybe we should start talking. You may have noticed that the account that posted that, and by the way, we should note, that was obviously an AI translation. That was not Putin actually speaking English. The Rubin Reporter. This could be the Russian version of Dave Rubin. Do we have a screenshot of his Twitter account also? Yeah, oh no, we don't have that. But yeah, apparently his name is Rubin, this guy. The Rubin Reporter. We'll find out more. We should have him on. We should do a giant Rubin Report Russia crossover. Okay, so where are we so far? Good stuff out of Russia, Ukraine. That's good. Where were we yesterday? Good stuff out of the Middle East. We don't know where it all lands, but we know that things are changing, and you have to hope they're changing for the better and that calmer heads will prevail and everything else. And then now let's jump back to the Middle East, because over the last last week, we got the last living American hostage out of under the horrific tunnels in Gaza. He had been there for over 500 days, New Jersey-born Eden Alexander. And here he is. And this is when you see Trump just doing what Trump is the best at doing, just being himself and being fun and light and great and actually humble. Here's Trump talking to newly released Eden Alexander.
Mr. President.
I'm very nervous talking to you, Eden, because you're a much bigger celebrity than I am.
No.
Eden is the hottest celebrity in the world right now. So,
That's crazy.
But that's no way to become a celebrity, right? We'll do it a different way the next time for you.
Crazy.
Well, we're very honored. Well, it's crazy.
Just because of you, I'm here. You're the only reason I'm here. You saved my life. Honestly, you saved my life.
How was it? Are you free to talk a little bit?
I'm on speaker and there's a bunch of cameras. So. Yeah, I don't really know.
I just wanted to ask. There are going to be cameras around you for a while. That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
But the press has been very fair to you, I must say. And it's been really, it's been an amazing journey. You know, for a while we thought we lost you. Actually, a lot of people thought you were not around anymore. There was a period of time.
Yeah, I know.
Just really honored, and you're an American, and we love you, and we're going to take good care of you, and your parents are.
That is simply Donald Trump at his best. Like, it's just him being himself and being human. And Eden Alexander is right. I don't know if it's only Trump that got him out, right? The Israeli army's doing an awful lot over there, but they needed the extra pressure. It was very clear that as Trump was about to go to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, that Trump basically was like, you're gonna release this last American right now before I get there. Otherwise, he looks kind of ridiculous. So Trump did that, right? Now, there's still 20 people under there. They're not American citizens. That's a different issue altogether. But Trump did that. And as I keep saying for the last couple of weeks, we've got to focus on the good things that are happening differently. Why could Joe Biden not do that? Can you even imagine Joe Biden taking a phone call with one of these hostages? Like, you really can't. Joe Biden did virtually everything he could to hamper Israel's war effort. Kamala Harris, don't go into Rafah. And then Israel went into Rafah and they killed the head of Hamas. So things have just so fundamentally changed, and it's important that we realize that it has happened and it has happened quickly, and there's more good happening. But we will have more on Biden and the fallout over this new cancer announcement in just a second. But first, Goldco. President Trump's back in office, but he's facing nonstop challenges from activist judges to a major trade war with China shaking up the markets. That's why I'm excited to announce my new partnership with Goldco, the top-rated precious metals company. I've personally chosen to protect my money with gold and silver, and Goldco made the process incredibly simple. They help everyday Americans move over $3 billion into gold and silver. These guys know what they're doing. Right now, they're offering unlimited bonus silver on all qualified orders, but it's only while supplies last, so don't wait. Visit davelikesgold.com to learn more. You'll even get a free 2025 gold and silver kit to help you decide. Again, that's davelikesgold.com. Check it out. All right, so we've talked about some of the good stuff coming out of the current administration. Let's go to some of the bad stuff from the previous administration. Obviously, look, there was the cognitive stuff with Biden for years. There was the corruption around Hunter Biden and Ukraine and the firing of the prosecutor in Ukraine. There was just so much there all the time. There was bringing in a VP only because of her genitals and her skin color. There was the hiring of the trans health secretary only because he was a dude who was dressing like a chick. There was bringing in a transportation secretary just because he sleeps with a dude. We can go through all of the things that was just, everything, the entire freaking bucket. It was just a scandal bucket. It should have just said, there should have been a bucket. It should have said scandal on it, and you should have just dumped in all of the crap. Well, now that it has come out that Joe Biden also has late-stage prostate cancer, which takes years and years. I watched several videos yesterday from trusted doctors. We're going to show you some stuff here. It takes years and years to metastasize the way that it has now into his bones, and it is late-stage prostate cancer, which at his age, and especially being the president of the United States, there is simply no way. I have not heard one person say there was any way that this could have got by the doctors for years and years and years. So now a secondary scandal has broken. There was the mental scandal, the mental acuity scandal, and now there's a complete other scandal as it relates to who knew that he had cancer, when did he know it? He said he had it years ago, which we all were like, oh no, he doesn't have cancer, it's just because he has dementia, he accidentally said it. Let's jump over to the ladies of The View, and of course they're running cover for the whole charade.
What they're saying is, there are three ways they can treat it. His age will have a lot to do with how they do it. But I want to point out to people that had this been the case while he was president, there's no way you wouldn't have known.
Right. Yeah.
Because he would have had to have these treatments. So this is not something he was carrying around or that he was hiding. And as Anna said, we know about his struggles. We know about his struggles, and now we know about this one. And I just, again, want to commend the people who cut their tongues off and said, get well soon, and because I think that it did something for me.
Yeah.
It
The
made
people who
me.
didn't cut their tongues off, I have a place where they can put them.
I don't think this is a time for politics, but what I will say is that this administration has cut cancer funding research by 31% since 2025. And the U.S., for being such a wealthy country, seems to be cutting cancer research not only for our elderly, our men, but also our children. And I think that's so despicable and so disdainful.
All right, there's a lot to cover there. I think most importantly, let it be known that I will not be sticking my tongue in any of, I can think of at least two places that you were talking about, Anna Navarro. No. That's one thing. Number two, Whoopi. You are implying that they would have known about this, and so that it must have just shown up, because if they would have known about it years ago, they would have told us. Have you ever heard of a conspiracy? Have you ever heard of, government not telling people exactly what's going on? Like, you're so profoundly dim after years and years of all of the lies that we have seen. Like, is it so crazy to you, Whoopi? Are you so freaking hopped up on the indica every day that it does not enter your mind that it might be that actually there was an inside group of people with his doctor and perhaps Dr. Jill Biden and whoever else that knew he had those things, that was giving him the treatments for it and didn't tell anyone because they wanted to, spoiler alert, maintain power? Because as Emperor Palpatine told Anakin, those who have power usually want to retain it. That was a loose quote when they were at the thing with the thing. You know what I'm talking about from Revenge of the Sith. So Whoopi, think a little bit, right? That's think a little bit. So Anna, I'm not sticking my tongue there. Whoopi, I want you to think. And then what was the third thing? Then Sunny, lady, she then connects it to the American healthcare industry as it pertains to cancer. And that's fine to talk about. Sure, that is. And actually, there's a guy that you guys don't like very much. His name is Robert F. Kennedy, and he's working on figuring out why we're poisoning ourselves literally from birth when we give kids formula that has high fructose corn syrup and all these chemicals and everything else. And then we put Fruit Loops in front of them when they're 5 and they have literal poisons and everything else. But you don't like him very much. But also, lady, are you implying that Joe Biden that this wasn't discovered because he wasn't getting the care he deserved, that the president of the United States was not getting the care he deserved? It's just absolutely insane. And speaking of insane, let's go back to Whoopi.
And it also claimed, there's lots of claims of a health cover-up. And you know, when the Bidens were here, they kind of addressed that. And this is what they said.
Since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities in the final year of your presidency. What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that.
I saw him all throughout the day, and I did not create a cocoon around him. I mean, you saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. He wasn't hiding somewhere. I didn't have him, sequestered in some place. I mean, that's
Wish she had.
So will this cancer diagnosis add fuel to the fire, or should politics be put aside for a minute and just let's get through this?
Okay, so I'll do that part first for you, Whoopi, because I'm smacking you around a little here. I'll do that part for you first. Yes, there's a difference between having sympathy, as I said yesterday, for a man who most likely doesn't have much time left on this planet. I have sympathy for that man, despite all of the things around him politically that were so horrible, and we don't even know what he knew the entire time. But I have sympathy for the man, and I think it is important to separate the man from the political part of this, right? We are all going to go one day, one way or another, and you would hope that even people who've done terrible, terrible things, and I'm not even necessarily accusing that of Biden, although he did do a lot of terrible things during COVID and elsewhere, like, we're all human. So at the human level, okay, fine. That's one thing. Then the fact that they throw to a clip of their own show with him from a week and a half ago, where if you watch the full thing as we showed it to you, not the way they edited it, they're asking, you have Alyssa Farah asking him about his mental acuity, and he's breaking down mentally while it's happening, and Jill has to jump in. I will say this, for the sympathy that I have for Joe Biden, again, as a human being, not the political machine around Joe Biden, I have no sympathy, literally no sympathy for Jill Biden. She's evil. The fact that she can get up there and perform it, oh, he was out there all the time and no one ever saw anything and he's great, just look at him right here. He's sitting here and he didn't poop in his pants while we're sitting here on The View right now, at least. I mean, maybe wait till the commercial break, who knows? And he did get off a funny line there, so I'll give him that. He's not completely gone yet. But again, the broader point on all of this is you MFers, trying to be nice today, you MFers, you know what you did? You took something that could have been such an unbelievable learning experience for everybody in the country and an unbelievable healing experience, because we all will be confronted with these things, or we all have been confronted with these things, right? I mentioned it yesterday, I've mentioned it before. My grandma Elaine, in her later years when she developed dementia, and I was doing stand-up at night, so I was free a lot during the day. And I would take her to geriatric doctors, and we would go to all of that, and oncologists and other things, and to watch the mind go. I spent a lot of time around that. It is unbelievably, it's horrific, and it opens up a Pandora's box of a million things. And like, you guys had a chance. You should have done it on The View 2 weeks ago, because now you're going to put him away for sure. Like, we're not going to be seeing much more of Joe Biden. I said when he left in the first place, we were going to see him 2 or 3 more times. We've got about the 2 or 3 now. But like, you had an opportunity to go on The View that day and say, you know what, actually he has been on some meds and there's some stuff that's going on here. Or you had an opportunity to beat the story about the prostate cancer or something, but you guys did none of it. And now the same people who ran cover for that are running cover for this. Here's Dr. Zeke Emanuel over on the televised mental institution known as MSNBC talking to Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough, a man who just a year ago was telling us that Joe Biden was even sharper than he is, which he might have been right about that one. Here he is saying that there is virtually no way that they did not know that Joe Biden had cancer during his presidency.
You believe it is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
All right, so I can't believe it, but I'm going to give Joe Scarborough some credit here for having that guy on to say that on that ridiculous network of pure propaganda. But again, and I watched Dr. Drew on an interview yesterday, and I listened to a couple other doctors talk about this, and I read a few articles yesterday. There is almost no chance that the type of prostate cancer at the level with which he has it now metastasized to the bone and spreading throughout his body, there's just no way it could have appeared in 100 days. I have not heard one doctor saying that. So the question is, was the White House doctor lying? Did the White House doctor hide it from him all of these years and not tell Joe Biden, in which case that guy should certainly lose his medical license and or go to jail? And if Joe Biden and clearly Jill Biden and whoever else there knew, and then he was taking medication for this, one of the things that I heard Dr. Drew say, I want to make sure I don't get this wrong, was something to the effect of one of the side effects of this could be some mental degradation. So there's a whole bunch of things that have happened here that again are coming to light. And as they're coming to light, the same people who ran cover for it are largely trying to tamp it down. So that will be the challenge going forward. But I think all of us who were right about this stuff, who for some reason were right about a lot of other stuff as it pertained to COVID and verifying people and all that other stuff, we just have to keep pushing here. Here's former RNC chairman Reince Priebus talking about how so many of us were shamed for just saying what was freaking obviously right in front of our faces.
First of all, people were put to shame, me and others out there that talked about Joe Biden's mental acuity. We were told he was sharp as a tack. He had a photographic memory. He was intense and brilliant. And what's amazing is the sources of this book were the same sources that told us that we ought to be ashamed of ourselves. It's a stutter. Okay. Stop talking about him.
Okay, so you see the point there, guys. We've all been through this. Like, you probably watching this have been through that, where a couple of years ago you were like saying to somebody, hey, Joe Biden, something's going on here. And people were like, no, it isn't. It's a stutter and and cheap fakes and deep fakes and all of these things. Once again, we were right. And it's not pat you on the back, we were right. It's like, in some ways, it's like, fucking, hey, we were right again. That's actually what it is more. Now I want to jump over to Scott Adams, who was given a speech on the phrase, the big lie, because we heard about the big lie for a lot. The big lie, of course, was that Donald Trump, that he actually lost the election when he said he won the election. That's what they framed as the big lie. But here he is, Scott Jennings, connecting this to the Biden cover-ups.
If I had a nickel for every time I had heard an anchor or a fellow commentator use the phrase, the big lie, after the 2020 election, I'd be a rich man. But I wonder what they have to say for themselves now about the lies that we were told about Joe Biden. Oh, behind closed doors, he's fine. He's riding unicycles and juggling knives and doing trigonometry blindfolded. What would they say about the enormous conspiracy that was required to cover up this impairment? What would they say about the coordinated smear campaign against anyone who dared question it? And what would they say about the clear fact that unelected people were making decisions in a constitutional republic in the name of a president who had no idea what was going on? Shame. Shame on every one of these people who inflicted the real big lie on America. and the constitutional crisis upon the people of the United States.
Yeah, that's right. A quick correction. I think I might have said Scott Adams, and then I said Scott Jennings. Scott Adams is on my mind at the moment because he made an announcement yesterday that's actually connected to all of this as it pertains to Joe Biden. We'll get to that at the end. But that was obviously Scott Jennings. He was at the center of the American experiment in Minnesota when he was giving that speech. And again, he's right. It does not matter what you think about January 6th or what happened during that election or Donald Trump's culpability in any of it or anything else. Even if you grant some of that to these people, they have been lying about absolutely everything. And again, that's why yesterday I was so focused on this idea that maybe we are at some kind of dente here. Maybe we're at some sort of moment here where enough people, after all of the cognitive lies and everything as it relates to COVID and everything else, now this cancer thing also has seeped in. And maybe it will just be enough for a few more people to get themselves out of the matrix. And if it is, then we can widen that tent a little bit more. There will be a few more people angled at least towards the truth. And I think that would be good for everybody. Well, everybody except the Democrats. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, gravity to fire. You guys know I'm all about logic and reason, and here's some simple logic. If your feet are killing you at the end of the day, you need new shoes. That's why I love G-Defy shoes by Gravity Defier. Their patented Verso Shock technology absorbs harmful shock, returns energy, and is designed to make walking, running, and standing feel effortless. Whether you're out and about or just on your feet all day, G-Defy makes every step better. Right now, my listeners get 30% off orders over 120. Just text Rubin30 to 91888 or visit gdefy.com and use code Rubin30 at checkout. Use logic, choose comfort, G-Defy. All right, so where are the Democrats at the moment? Well, we know, because they're even covering it on CNN these days, that their approval numbers are really bad. We also know there is no head of the party, right? Kamala's gone. Joe has dementia and cancer. Barack, I think, has been exposed as a chief architect of so much of the evil that's been going on there. Hillary's day has come and gone. Like, there's just nobody left. So they're floating out things. Here's George Clooney. Look at him for a minute while we try to figure this out. No, there's Bernie Sanders on the oligarchy tour while he's on a private plane. Like, none of it's working. They don't know what to do. So what do they have? Well, you know, and it's fear. They have to stoke fear constantly, just while they try to figure out what the future of their party is going to be. Timu Obama, you know who I'm talking about, Hakeem Jeffries, here he is threatening retaliation if the Democrats who stormed the New Jersey ICE facility, we covered this last week, they tried to bust in, they were pushing cops, threatening people, getting elbows in the face of ICE agents, et cetera. He's threatening retaliation if any of them are arrested.
What happens if they were to go and arrest these members, or if they would try to sanction them here in the House of Representatives?
They'll find out.
What would you do, though?
They'll find out.
Recourse? But doesn't that broach a...
They'll find out.
Doesn't that go across...
That's a red line.
What's the red line, though? I know we have this...
It's a red line. It's very clear. There are clear lines that they just dare not cross.
He really is Timu Obama. He's just like a broken down android. Like in the movie about the robots, he'd be the old version that just like repeats the phrase over and over. Red line. They'll find out. They'll find out. What do you want for lunch? Red line. They'll find out. They'll find out. The guy's just got nothing. But basically, yeah, if you are a member of Congress or you're a janitor or you're a shoe salesman or a porn actor, you're not allowed to break into an ICE facility. That was quite a collection of people. Can we write a sitcom about that? A porn actor, a janitor, a member of Congress, and I don't know, throw in one other. A shoe salesman, right? And they try to break into an ICE facility. That's a comedy right there. Let's get on that. Or let's talk to Zucker about that. You can't do it. You just can't do it. You can go and you can knock on the door and say, hey, can I come in and see what's going on here? But you can't force your way in and elbow ICE agents and everything else. But this is what the Democrats have left. They have imaginary red lines. They have the defense of MS-13 gang members who were beating their wife with a boot and all of that. And then they're going to defend the guys who are going to ICE and trying to break in. And then they've got, you remember this lady, Stacey Abrams, a woman who was running a multi-million-dollar slush fund and didn't take $12,000 to fix the gap in her teeth. Like, of all of the stupid things that this woman was doing, it's just like, if you're running a giant slush fund, take just a little bonding. It's Not even $12,000. Just bond it, lady. Anyway, Stacey Abrams right now is accused of being connected to the New Georgia Project, which was fined $300,000 for illegally spending millions to support her 2018 gubernatorial campaign without proper disclosure, prompting a Georgia Senate investigation. A lot of this was uncovered during the USAID stuff that Doge was doing. Here is Stacey Abrams saying that her attackers are going after her because she somehow is the representative, well, the gap-toothed representative of democracy.
In Georgia politics, the governor, Brian Kemp, signed a bill this week that outlined the Georgia General Assembly's subpoena powers. The Georgia Senate opened an investigation into you this year, alleging that a group you worked with improperly received government grants. You are on one way, in some way, part of this group of people who are being targeted for their politics. What do you make of this?
I make of it that they are failing at their promises, and they're looking at those of us who've managed to deliver for Americans, and they're targeting us. I stand accused of helping people register to vote, helping them turn out and vote, helping make certain that families that wanted to lower their energy costs got the equipment and the support they needed. So essentially, they're mad at me for proving that democracy can deliver, and they would rather distract than actually do their jobs. This is an administration that is being supported by a complicit Congress, and they are doing their level best to distract and destroy rather than to actually deliver.
I can't take it. Listen, I'm going to throw in $1,000. I don't think bonding takes that. You know, I know a dentist. I have a dentist friend. He's in New York. I'll pay to fly him down to Atlanta. Let's just get that shit taken care of. That's number one. Number two, Ali Velshi, you're not very good at your job. Because what you might want to do if you're a journalist, I know you're not a journalist, you work at MSNBC and you look like a thumb, but what you might want to do if you're a journalist is if someone is accused of taking $300,000, improperly for their gubernatorial campaign, which, by the way, the only thing she's done to save democracy is lose elections. Like, keep going, lady. But what you might want to ask, if I was a journalist, and I'm not a journalist, I just sit here and tell you what I think, but if I was a journalist and I had someone on my show who was accused of taking $300,000 improperly, I would say to them, sir, ma'am, have you taken $300,000 improperly? But he didn't ask that. Instead, he said, you're someone who's defending democracy and you're accused of blah, 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 because you're part of the thing that we are constantly exposing right now. You are part of it, fool. Bernie Sanders is also a fool. He went on a podcast, talked to a couple comedians, and actually said something sort of right here. Look how, first off, I want you to, when you're watching this clip, I want you to look at Bernie's, his body language. It's always, there's always like this. But I want you to watch his body language. I want you to see the depression in his face. He realizes that he's basically done. AOC is now squeezing the last bit of Bernie Sanders juice out of his old body to basically take his socialist dream and do something else with it entirely. He knows he's basically done, but watch him actually say something true about how corrupt the Democrats have been for the last decade plus.
The problem I think a lot of voters had is like they didn't even know if it was her. We didn't even know if Biden was president. We didn't even know if these were her talking points. And we felt that over the last 4 elections, Democrats, we felt that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
I donated for you. I wanted you to, like, 2016, I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it. And it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported him.
Look, but you have, in the world that I live in, you got a choice. And I mean, a lot of people, including my wife, agree with you. But, you're down to a choice. Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Not a great choice.
But would we not also say if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear.
Fair enough. That is, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that.
Fair enough. They are a threat to the democracy, and they did screw me over, but I'm a Democrat. I'm almost done.
You can just read it on him. He knows it's almost over. And in the end, Bernie will have done absolutely nothing for this country. He will have done an awful lot. He ushered in an awful lot of bad ideas under the guise of tolerance and decency and being a nice socialist and I'm for everybody. He helped usher in this progressive lunacy, but the man accomplished nothing other than becoming a millionaire who owns 3 houses, who sold himself out. That's the question. That's really what this is about, because they, what's his name? Andrew, what's the guy's name? Andrew Schulz basically says to him, you know, Hillary and the Democrats, they screwed you over. It seemed like it was going to be you, and they screwed you over. And he basically is like, yeah, they did, and my wife thinks I'm a sellout too, and you know, with nothing a little blue chew can't solve. You know what I'm saying? But he knows it's basically over for him, and it should be. And the thing that he ushered in, it's not that he just ushered in the idea that socialism is good and giant government is good and everything else. It's that was the first step. But then it got infused with all of this racial stuff. Bernie, to Bernie, it's not even credit, but Bernie did not, I don't think, intend for the progressive movement to come as hyper racist as it became and become about all the gender stuff. His thing was an economic thing. You may disagree with it, I obviously do, but I don't think he intended that then it would become the culturally Marxist thing that we all know about as it pertains to gender and the trans stuff and race and everything else. But because he opened the door for it, it all rushed in, and here is MSNBC's Elie Mystal, who is a racist, a good old-fashioned racist, and he wants to save the country from the white people.
That this election has proven, that this administration has proven painfully in some ways, is that Black people cannot save this country from white folks. We can't do it alone, right? If white folks aren't going to join in, if white women aren't going to join in, if Latinos aren't going to join in, we can't do it alone.
Thank God people like you can't, because I don't want to live in the America that you want to live in. You know, I mention this every now and again, but I live here in Miami. There are a ton of Latino people down here. I hear Spanish all day long. In some ways, I do wish I heard a little more English, actually. I play basketball with about 20 guys who many of them are Hispanic. They're either Cuban or Venezuelan or whatever, and they love this freaking country. They don't owe you a dime. All of them, I think 19 out of the 20 guys I play with are Trump supporters. Is it because they're racist? Do they not like Black people? Or do they, some of them, especially the ones whose families or first generation came from Cuba, know what authoritarianism is? Like, it's just dim-witted nonsense. And until people like Elie Mystal get over that stuff, then you will cause, if you're concerned that Black people are caught in a cycle of poverty or whatever you want to call that thing, well, it's because of people like him. Why isn't there a bunch of Asian people on TV going, we have to get this country back and we need white women to do it for us? It would sound completely absurd, because Asian people, by and large, whether they're Chinese, Japanese, or Korean or whatever it might be, focus on family and education and working hard and everything else. And then America allows the cream to rise to the top. But that Q-tipped haired buffoon would prefer that you bow to him as a white person so that he can usher in, I don't know, his Black supremacy or something else. Speaking of buffoons, James Comey, who, as you know, was in a bit of trouble over the last couple of days because he was walking the beach, randomly found a series of shells that were organized with the numbers 8647, which 86 is well known in a restaurant when they don't have the food anymore. You 86 it because it's not on the menu anymore, or because back in the day, the mafia literally used to throw people off the roof of the Empire State Building, the 86th floor. And if you drop 86 floors off the Empire State Building, generally not going to end well for you. Unless it's a cartoon and there's a big trampoline there and then you can go back up and whatever. But as a general rule, not going to work. James Comey posted that, and a lot of people were saying that, you know, he was threatening to kill President Trump. As I said the other day, like, I don't know if it was a direct, I don't know what you even do with that. Tulsi said he should probably be behind bars. Okay, let's put some of that stuff aside. Here he is being interviewed, and it was just artistic flair. It was just artistic.
And I really thought that I was done. I was in another life. I was a grandfather and an author wearing, you know, sweaters and jeans. And then I went for a walk on the beach and posted a silly picture of shells that I thought was a clever way to express a political viewpoint. And actually, I still think it is. I don't see it the way some people are still saying it is. But again, I don't want any part of any violence. I've never been associated with violence. And so that's why I took it down.
So your position, even after all of this, the Secret Service calling you and bringing you in for questioning, is that the phrase, the message on the shells was political speech and is political speech.
Yeah, by somebody. I actually didn't think of it as political speech by me, but I thought, what a clever way to express a political view. The shells were the same color for each of the letters, so different colors for the letters. It took a lot of work. Somebody with artistic flair did that, and I have a hard time believing it was anybody with a dark intention, and it certainly was no dark intention on my part or my spouse.
Someone with artistic flair did that. You know, we were at the beach with the kids the other day. They're 2.5 years old. They're able to take shells and create things. We did a big J for Justin in shells, and we did a big L for Luke in shells. They didn't also imply that the President of the United States should be killed. Father of the Year over here, you know what I'm saying? Just absurd, just absurd. Again, I don't know that you jail the guy or anything else. Like, it's just more nonsense that only goes one way, as you know. We'll have more on the one-way thing in just a second, but first, Brickhouse Nutrition. Brickhouse Nutrition's Memorial Day sale is happening now. For a limited time, get 25% off everything with code MEMORIAL25 at brickhousenutrition.com. That includes Lean, a powerful weight loss supplement designed to deliver results similar to GLP-1 injections, but without the needles or prescriptions. Also, Field of Greens, a superfood blend of fruits and veggies, is on sale. From collagen to creatine, every doctor-formulated product on Brickhouse Nutrition is 25% off. Kick off your healthiest summer yet. Head on over to brickhousenutrition.com and use code MEMORIAL25 before the sale ends. All right, so let's get to the other brewing fight that is happening right now, because to the backdrop of a lot of the good things that are happening, we do have a fight between the executive branch and the judicial branch. This has been basically from day one of the presidency, of the second go-around with Donald Trump as president, that as he tries to do things, as it pertains particularly to deportations, that lower-level courts are trying to take him out, or take him out. They're trying to 86 him. They're trying to stop him from being able to do the deportations as he'd like to. This is from Publius X. Yep. Sorry? Oh, sorry, we switched this. This is an ABC News headline story. I prefaced the story properly. We switched the element. This is from ABC News. SCOTUS allows White House to end protections for 350,000 Venezuelans in the United States. Okay, so this is pretty good, right? Something might be happening here. Now we have a bit more from Grok AI on what happened here. The CHNV program, officially known as the Humanitarian Parole Program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, was a Biden administrative initiative launched in October 2022 for Venezuelans and expanded in January of 23 to include Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans. It allowed up to 30,000 eligible nationals from these 4 countries to enter the U.S. each month for a 2-year period, granting them temporary humanitarian parole and work authorization. The program sought to address humanitarian crises in these countries, reduce unauthorized border crossings, and ease pressure on border communities. It was paired with the deal where Mexico accepted up to 30,000 expelled migrants monthly from these nations. The 30,000 monthly cap was seen as insufficient given the scale of migration. For example, 7 million Venezuelans had fled their country. Unlike Afghan and Ukrainian parole programs, CHNV was not paired with blanket extensions, raising concerns about deportations after the 2-year period. On March 25th, 2025, the Trump administration terminated the program effective April 24th, 2025, revoking parole and work permits for remaining beneficiaries. Notices were sent urging self-deportation, though a Massachusetts court issued a preliminary injunction on April 14th, 2025, temporarily staying these terminations. The Supreme Court, in an 8-1 decision on May 19th, reversed a lower court's injunction, allowing revocations to proceed now, pending further litigation. So we have had a large fight between the executive branch, which one of the few things the executive branch is supposed to do is protect our borders. That is one of the massive, massive failures of the previous administration that this administration is trying to clean up. But as that has happened, we have had months of lower courts trying to stop the executive branch from doing that. Now let's jump to, this is audio of Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and Solicitor John Sauer talking about universal injunctions, and you'll see how we tie this all together.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction. There's a dispute about Perkins against Lucan's Oil going back to 1940. And of course, we point to the court's opinion that reversed that universal injunction issued by the D.C. Circuit and said it's profoundly wrong.
We survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those were very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007 in our cert petition in Summers against Earth Island Institute. We pointed out that the Ninth Circuit had started doing this in a whole bunch of cases involving environmental claims.
Okay, so I think you get what's going on here. These injunctions are relatively new, and if we are to outsource the duties of the executive branch, millions and millions of us voted for Donald Trump largely in part because of the border and deportations. He's not doing something that he didn't promise to do. He's actually doing the rare thing that politicians do, which is doing what he promised to do. And if we are going to let activist judges have these injunctions on all of the decisions that he makes, and every time they try to do something which they were voted in to do, that a lower level court's able to override it, then we will basically be governed by the judicial branch. It will be as simple as that. And that would be a huge, huge problem. We had separation of powers and equal branches of government for a reason. It's not so that some random judge in the Fourth Circuit somewhere could just override the president of the United States because he's not a Republican. Of course, the bigger problem with all of this is that the very people who want due process now and suddenly love the courts and they love the judges, when it was the other way, they wanted to pack the courts and they hated the judges. But now that they see a little power within the courts, they want to expand that power. And the weird thing is, these people said nothing as we had 4 years of allowing criminals and fentanyl dealers and rapists and murderers and people who beat their wives with boots and things of that nature into the country. This from Colin Rugg on Twitter. New San Diego man knocks over illegal vending stand after Henry's Pub was forced to close down after 25 years in business. 12 San Diego businesses have launched a lawsuit against the city after illegal immigrants running food stands have demolished local businesses. The owners say the illegal stands are destroying their businesses, as reported by Amy for San Diego. Democrat San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is refusing to take action. Many of the illegal stands are run by illegal immigrants who are taking over the sidewalks of San Diego, including the Gaslamp Quarter, Belmont Park, and other locations throughout the city. I lose between $1,500 and $2,000 a night, said Ghost Heist Tacos owner Maria Cito. The businesses are seeking $12 million in damages from the city and demanding that it address the vendors. So this has been going on in San Diego for quite some time. We've shown you videos over the years of these boats of people, and somehow they're all dressed in black, and it's all men of military fighting age, literally just getting up to that beautiful, gorgeous freaking coast in San Diego, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the entire United States, and just running into town. So now there's illegals that are setting up cooking stands. It's causing mayhem and harming the businesses of legal people who are just trying to make a living, and they have just about had it. And where were the Democrats for that? Why is it that the Democrats are never for the law-abiding citizen who's trying to sell tacos, and they're always for the guy who got here illegally and is causing mayhem and selling drugs on the street and everything else? Here's Steve Bannon, who is really the chief architect of Trump's first win, Trump 45, talking about this fight between the judges and the executive branch and how this goes to the Article 2 powers.
If you're not an American citizen, you're here illegally, there's no due process. And I'm telling you, this is coming to a head. We are going to suspend the writ of habeas corpus if the courts keep ruling against this and don't allow these mass deportations to continue. Just like President Lincoln, this was an invasion. The country's at war. He's commander in chief. It's Article 2 power. And this is going to come.
Are you predicting that will happen or arguing it should happen?
First off, there is going to be a constitutional crisis before the court leaves. You know this. You just saw the federal judge in San Francisco last night ruled against his Article 2 power to basically rearrange and take, fire people in these agencies, et cetera. There's a challenge. The only way the Democrats are even winning right now is to delay, is to deny is to delay. They have no political operation. They have no counter argument. They have no populist economics. So what they're doing is getting more and more radical on these raids like they did in New Jersey yesterday. And the judges are trying to stop him. The Supreme Court's going to have to make a decision about President Trump's Article 2 powers, and we're going to see it.
Okay, so you can see what is brewing here, and I tend to think Bannon is right about this, that the longer this goes on, and it's also why I said a couple of weeks ago, the reason that so many lower courts are doing this right now is they're just trying to get Trump hung up in court so that he can't do much of anything, so that it can hopefully get to the midterms. The Democrats, because usually the presidential incumbent's party loses in the midterms, and then it'll sort of be like, oh, Trump's a lame duck, and he just won't be able to do much for the last 2 years of his presidency. But his point is, the more they do this, we will get to a fundamental constitutional crisis. Now, when he talks about suspending habeas corpus, of course, is basically it's the legal principle that protects against unlawful imprisonment. What his argument is we have to suspend it because there was an invasion, meaning that when Lincoln suspended it, it's because we were at war. And his argument is we are at war. If you let 12, 15 million people into your country, you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're doing, that is some type of war. Now, we can have a philosophical or I suppose a judicial debate about what the actual definition of war is. But the question, as always, is why did nobody, well, we did, but why did the Democrats and the powers that be in the judicial branch and everybody else, the media machine and everything, not care about the law when people were illegally coming into our country, and suddenly they care about the law as it pertains to us having to boot people out of the country perfectly right and do it in the most clean possible way? Could it be possible that they know that we can't do it that way? That's what JD has been saying, the vice president. He's like, yeah, how are you going to possibly, in an orderly way, give all of these people trials? It's just how you slow roll everything until nobody gets kicked out. So anyway, let's put a pin in that for the moment, because there is something else interesting going on, which is that Trump's big, beautiful spending bill is here, and some people like it, some people don't. We've got a bit from NBC. The House Budget Committee advanced President Donald Trump's multi-trillion-dollar domestic policy package Sunday night, 2 days after a group of conservatives voted to reject it. The package includes a major spending increase for immigration enforcement and the military, and it would extend Trump's 2017 tax cuts, which are scheduled to expire at the end of this year. It includes a series of cuts to Medicaid, food assistance, and clean energy funding to pay for trillions of dollars in tax cuts and new red ink. Okay, so there's feelings on this thing on both sides. There are some conservatives don't like it because it is an increase of spending. There are some people that don't want anything cut. The Medicaid cuts, it should be made clear, these are Obamacare cuts, so it's cuts from things that were just put in that made the government bloat a bit bigger. And yes, they are going for tax cuts, which I'm for tax cuts for everybody. Every single person in the United States that has a job should have more of their money. The government does not need any more of your money. Here's White House spokesman Caroline Leavitt on more of what the bill will do.
Now Congress needs to act. The One Big Beautiful Bill is the most significant investment in our nation's border patrol and law enforcement agents in our nation's history. The bill ensures that President Trump's popular and successful border security measures are made permanent. Republicans have the backs of Border Patrol and ICE agents who were put through hell over the past 4 years and have quickly worked to secure our southern border. And that's why this bill gives them more resources to do their jobs, including a $10,000 much-needed bonus to ICE agents and Border Patrol agents over the next 4 years. To provide those brave agents with desperately needed reinforcements on the ground, the bill allows for the hiring of thousands of new ICE personnel, customs officers, and Border Patrol agents. These significant hirings will empower President Trump to continue delivering on his promise to carry out the largest mass deportation in the history of our country.
Okay, so look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, first off, I have not read the bill. I will be honest with you about that. You know how big these big, beautiful bills are? They're pretty big. They're up here. Nobody reads them. That's the thing. Nobody reads them. I will tell you this, however, that the fact that we're going to strengthen the border, we're going to give some of these guys the tools that they need, and we're going to give them a little more money to do it. Again, that's what Trump ran on. And anything as it pertains to tax cuts, I am for. The government does not need more of your money. That's what I said a minute ago, and I said it again just now. The other part of this is that it's going to be a massive tax cut to small businesses, and small businesses are the backbone of the country. If you want to go do something, you want to open up a nail shop, you want to open up a smoothie store, Joey, what would you do in an alternate universe? What would you like to do? What kind of business? If you did not work for me and you will be working for me for the rest of your life, what would you like to do? You'd like to...
Flying car shop.
A flying car shop. Okay, that's what he'd like to do. Now, he can't because he's an indentured servant here. But if he wanted to, in some alternate timeline, if this was the Marvel universe, I would be for the tax cut, which would enable him to do it. Here is Caroline Leavitt on small business tax cuts.
This bill will be the single most pro-small business, pro-family, and pro-American worker legislation ever. This bill will give Americans the largest tax cuts in our nation's history. When Republicans pass the bill, Americans will be keeping more of their hard-earned money and taking home much bigger paychecks. The One Big Beautiful Bill will deliver some of President Trump's central campaign promises. No tax on tips for our hardworking waiters, waitresses, and service workers. No tax on overtime for our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, and all those Americans who are putting in extra hours to make ends meet. And a large tax deduction on interest payments for Americans who purchase American-made cars.
Doesn't that all sound good to you guys? Like, it's more just for the average person. We're going to take less of your money. You know, if you work on tips, you're a waiter, you're a bartender, et cetera, you work on tips, that's for you. You do a good job. The government's not going to have anything to do with that. You know, 2 weeks ago, we took the kids to the beach. I just mentioned that before. And we go out to dinner one night and we're at the, you know, just like a, you know, like greasy fish sandwich, burger, chicken finger place with the kids, and having 2-year-olds at a restaurant, like, you know, they're opening up the salt and dumping it and they're knocking over waters. And this waitress, she was a 21, 22-year-old girl. She was so freaking sweet. The bill came to, I don't know, $40 or something. Like, it was a very like simple place. And I gave her $100 and I didn't even say anything. I just gave her $100 and walked out because it was just like, this girl was just so sweet and nice. Why should the government then come in and take 30% of that? It just shouldn't. So they're doing things that are better for the average person. Now, because although I'm not a journalist, I would say I'm a fair-minded human being, I'd like to play devil's advocate for a moment, because over on the All In podcast, you know, we play a lot of clips from these guys. And actually, I was just on Jason Calacanakis' podcast. Is that up already? It's up already. Yeah, it is up already. And David Sachs is over there, although at the moment he's doing more for the administration. But one of the co-hosts of the show is David Friedberg. And here he is taking a bit of an oppositional position as to what I just laid out there on this big, beautiful bill.
God, if you're an American, you should feel shame that your elected officials are proposing that this is the bill that gets passed, that we vaporize this much money, that we put ourselves this much further in debt, that we do not treat the situation as the fiscal emergency that it is. The bill ultimately yields no real change in the annual deficit. The annual deficit could climb to $2.5 trillion being added to the federal debt load every single year. And at the end of the day, Congress needs to take action. And this bill from Congress doesn't take much action. I will tell you that if you look across the board, all of these programs are still being proposed to be run at a cost that is well in excess of their pre-COVID levels. And so I would set 2 guiding principles. If I was to be the benevolent dictator of the United States of America, my guiding principle number 1 would be that any program that we intend to continue to persist have its budget level cut to pre-COVID, to 2019 levels. Second would be, and if we did that, by the way, we would be in a much better fiscal situation. The second would be that we add no new programs in the moment. There's a whole bunch of new shit thrown into this bill, as well as increasing the cost and a few cuts here and there.
Okay, so that's the counterposition. The counterposition that is ultimately that there isn't enough cut here, and that this is going to be a spending bill, and that it's going to add to the debt and everything else. We will see. My general inclination, what about, you know, it's the same thing that I would say as it pertains to the Middle East stuff and the Russia stuff, which is that Trump, I think, deserves a little leeway and a little grace here. They're trying to do so much that's my general position. And if you put a bill in front of me that generally is going to get more small businesses out there in the economy, and it's going to cut more taxes for more people, and the tipping thing and all that, I think that's all great. That is not to say that at the end of the day, there isn't going to be some bad stuff in there too, but I would say it's the same thing as the tariff thing, which is we will see where it lands. I want to end the show on a slightly different note. I referenced this halfway through. This is a very, very sad note, actually, so it's a bit of a weird ending because we try not to end this way. But, you know, when the Joe Biden cancer news came out, obviously all sorts of people are having all sorts of reactions. One of the people who does I would say a similar gig that I do, is Scott Adams. Scott Adams, of course, I've had him on the show many, many times. He was one of the first, if not the first other creator we brought on to Locals when we started the company. And he connected us with a whole bunch of people. I've known him only to be a really good and decent guy. I've really learned a lot from him. He was one of the first kind of outspoken Trump supporters very, very early on. I've always enjoyed him. I just don't have a bad word to say about the guy. Scott announced yesterday on his live stream that he also has terminal cancer and believes that he'll be checking out sometime this summer. I want to throw to a clip of that.
You know, everybody has to die, as far as I know. And it's kind of civilized that you know about how long you have, so you can put your affairs together and make sure you've said your goodbyes and done all the things you need to do. So if you had to pick a way to die, this one's really painful, like really, really painful. But it's also kind of good that it gives you enough time while your brain is still working to wrap things up. So while this could be much worse, you know, for some people, I suppose, I'm handling it quite well. The pain is tough. I mean, really tough. But the mental part, you know, I got that under control. And I can see in the comments that some of you are having a tough time with it. But remember, nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever.
All right, so it sounds like he has a similar situation to Joe Biden, and it has advanced. And I think he said it also has spread to his bones and all that. Look, first off, Scott, if you're watching today, and I'll text you in a little bit, you're just a good man. And anything that I can do in this, to whatever little extent I can do anything in this little time that you have left, I'm here for you. That's number one. But number two, I think that puts all of this into perspective a little bit. Like, we've all just got a certain amount of time, and sometimes hit by a car out of nowhere and it's over. And sometimes you get a diagnosis like this, and as he said, there's a pain involved, but he's also able to deal with his affairs. And, you know, I think my sense is that he's going to probably do his show till the last moment that he can't do it anymore, and that his mind, as he said, his brain is still good despite whatever's going on with the physical body. I would also say, and maybe, who knows, you know, life has a strange way of working. Like, who knows who just watched him do that video yesterday and what groundbreaking treatments, and the guy's got, you know, access and money and all that. Like, who knows what the treatments are, and maybe some miracle comes around. But either way, we've all got just like a limited amount of time here. And I think it puts a little bit of some of the endless fighting and everything else into perspective. And I would also connect it to what I said earlier about how the Biden administration and all of these people and Jill and everybody, that they had a learning moment here, that Scott just gave us the learning moment, right? You guys could have given us the learning moment when you went on The View. You could have said, yeah, there's something wrong here, or there's been something wrong, or we're looking into what's going on. You guys decided to perpetuate the lie. Scott, I don't know if he was intending on doing this yesterday. I sincerely doubt it, but then this news happens, and then he says, this is my moment to share this thing. He did the learning moment, right? And it's just a shame that the other guys who had an incredible chance did not do that. I'm gonna message Scott in a moment. Guys, reminder that our world tour, which will be kicking off through much of the year, it starts next week in Budapest, a couple shows, then in Tel Aviv, then in Jerusalem. End of the year, we'll be in Melbourne. We've got a couple other things, including Canada and a bunch more that we will be adding. You can go to daverubin.com events, or you can scan the QR code on your screen right there. We also have a brand new newsletter. You can find out all sorts of things. Does Dave Rubin wear shoes during the show? Actually, he does not. That was a little, it's that type of information. You need access to it in your inbox once a week, daverubin.com/newsletter. We're not going to cold close for you. I felt that the Scott thing was kind of the way to go out, but we will have a post-game show in 30 seconds, rubinreport.locals.com. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.